I still remember the taste of antiseptic air in my mouth, that greyish, numbing cold that creeps through hospital corridors as I walked briskly after my mother's brisk footsteps. There was a tension hanging from the ceiling tiles, thick enough you could almost see it, trembling between broken fluorescent lights and yellow tape on the peeling linoleum. I had just arrived from my latest shift at the art supply store, still smelling of turpentine and stale coffee, my hands flecked with paint. Ma waited for me, her mouth tight, eyebrows knotted. "You're late," she hissed under her breath, glancing around as though the walls themselves could judge us for family discord. Her words snapped with all the hurt and edge of someone in mourning. "I ran," I answered, chest still tight. "Train was delayed." She stared through me, her gaze hard. Behind her the city spilled through windows, a sullen dusk neon as a fever. "I can't believe this is what you wear," she muttered, eyeing my jacket, my shoes, my whole me really painted in the aftertaste of disappointment. Yet the real storm waited in the family lounge. My Uncle Marty was there, legs splayed, face red, making small talk with Aunt Lorraine and Cousin Julia. The old TV flickered in the corner. News about layoffs, rising rents, another shooting downtown. Dad was in the ICU, but the topic in the lounge was me. I crossed the threshold and immediately heard it. Marty's voice, gruff and sticky, like he wanted everyone to hear. "Kid paints at night while Dad pays the bills," he said, not bothering to hush. "Why couldn't you go to nursing school like Jen?" Julia snorted and Lorraine shrugged. Ma blinked a slow, silent apology. I felt my heart clench, but I swallowed and pulled up a chair. "Could we not? Dad's sick, this isn't the—" Marty cut me off. "You always have an excuse. When are you gonna get a real job, huh? Big man with a big dream, living in the clouds." In that moment, with grief spiking through my temples and the sterile lights glaring down, the world narrowed. I looked at each of them, the people who wiped my nose as a child, who passed me Sunday spaghetti, now seeing me only as something wilted, not real, not grown. I wanted to scream but only managed a shrug. "It matters to me," I whispered. "No one heard, or maybe they did and they just didn't care." Later that night I visited Dad, wires, beeps, his breath slow and wet, a man shrunk by illness. His hand trembled in mine as I sat at his bedside. He didn't speak much anymore, but I imagined he'd say what he always did. "You got to choose, Jamie, paint with all you've got or hang it up. But don't let them tell you who you are." Grief is sharpest in the quiet. The city outside winked with promise, but my future then felt like wet cardboard folding in the rain. I kept painting. I shuffled through my 20s, waiting tables, selling tubes of cobalt blue to eager students uptown, clutching my portfolio to my chest on the packed 6 train. Gallery doors never opened for me, juried shows shrugged me away. Each no cut a little deeper. I learned to smile through rejection, to paint in cramped apartments at 3 a.m., the walls sweating with noise from neighbors and clattering pipes. At home, family gatherings became opera. Tight-lipped dinners, Ma's worried glances, Marty's remarks. At Christmas he'd raise his glass. "To Jamie, may the dream never die," they'd laugh. I'd excuse myself, walk outside and breathe in the biting cold, searching electric windows for some sign that it wasn't all for nothing. There were lean years. Sometimes I'd wake up in a puddle of failed sketches, my fingers aching, rent slipping between unpaid bills. I questioned everything. Did my work matter? Was I any good? The city doesn't care about your longing. It chews on the bones of hope and spits them onto the sidewalk. But painting, delirious, obsessive, became my tether. I painted subway stations, sunset on tenement roofs, the haunted faces in late-night laundromats. I fell in love with cracks, with rust, with the 100 ways light can break over asphalt and glass. I kept working endlessly. Then, when I was 34, there was a shift. Perhaps my brush had become more certain, or the ache of struggle seeped into the work in a way someone finally understood. I entered a contest, a long shot, a city-sponsored mural, the kind of thing with 1,000 applicants. I almost didn't submit, what was one more rejection after all, but I did. A month later an email arrived, "Congratulations, Jamie Delgado." My knees buckled in my tiny studio. A blank wall on Delancey Street would soon wear my vision. The mural took 6 months, summer bled into fall. Each day I showed up before dawn, my stepladder and paint buckets in tow, watched by random passers-by. Sometimes people stopped to ask, sometimes they criticized. A few brought coffee. I painted through sun and rain, each stroke holding every spiteful word I'd swallowed since childhood. I painted myself into it. The child who felt unseen, the quiet backbone of the city, my mother's strong jaw and my father's weathered hands. When the unveiling came, it was winter. The city's breath hung white in the air. News cameras, strangers with phones out, sponsors in their thick coats, my name at last in the crisp bite of microphone introductions. I stood back and watched people see my work, a fractured luminous expanse sprawled across 4 stories, crowded with faces and colors, the story of us. A few wept openly, I saw myself reflected in their eyes. Word traveled quickly, calls came from curators, from magazines, from people who needed stories in paint. I sold my first series, I paid my bills. The door, once sealed, began to ease open, but even as success grew, a modest apartment, a name on plaques, I hadn't come home, mealtimes passed, birthdays, weddings, funerals, and I attended only in messages or brief, cold visits. The city smoothed many old wounds, but some scars stayed livid. Ma called less and less, her voice stiff with pride or maybe hurt. Once she left a message, "I saw your picture in the paper. Doesn't mean you shouldn't call home." Sometimes at night I'd stand at my window and look downtown, trying to find the faint glow of our old block. The past and present made uneasy peace in me, but I still knew what I was missing. Then just a few years ago I got an invitation. The Bronx Cultural Center was hosting a show, Local Legends, Visions of the City. My work, a set of paintings drawn from my childhood, of long-lost summers on stoops and sleepless winter nights, headlined the exhibition. The gallery was 20 blocks from my mother's house. I didn't call her or the others, not at first. Some wounds need to breathe, and pride is a double-edged thing. Instead, I told the curators to send general invites. They would figure it out or they wouldn't. All I could do was stand beneath those lights, my canvases ringing me like old friends. Opening night came. I wore a suit, dark, paintless, someone else's, for a few hours. The gallery buzzed with strangers and old voices. Reviewers, artists, a senator or two. I passed canapes and wine without tasting a thing. At 8 I saw them, Ma hunched in a wool coat, eyes wide as if she recognized someone famous and realized it was me. Julia with her husband, older, thicker, the sharpness in her gone. Even Marty, a stoop in his walk, but eyes just as critical, jaw set like stone. For a moment it was as if I'd been dropped into a dream, both too real and impossibly distant. But then Ma's eyes found mine and she smiled, the same tired, nervous little smile from every birthday. I crossed the room. She spoke first, voice softer than I remembered. "Jamie, oh honey." For the first time in years she hugged me tight. I felt the bones in her shoulders, fought the twist in my throat. Cousin Julia stepped up next, studying a canvas, my rendering of the old apartment lobby, gleaming with late afternoon gold. She hesitated. "I didn't know you remembered." "Of course I did," I answered, voice catching. "It's all still there." People milled around us, nudging closer to over here. Marty, arms crossed, faced the painting of Delancey Street, the mural in miniature but alive with extras, nods to memories, hidden faces from our family parties and block birthdays. He stepped right up to it, silent, eyes narrow. A faint tremor in his hand, he gestured. "That's supposed to be me, with the jelly jar and the Mets hat." The room seemed to pause, all air drawn to this moment. I took a breath. "It is. You used to bring root beers for everyone when it was too hot to sleep." A slow, grudging laugh then, not cruel, not mocking this time. All the sharpness in him left behind, he just nodded. "Well damn," he said, words cracking slightly, "didn't realize someone remembered that." I watched the crowd, the flash of camera phones, the fidget of strangers laughing near hors d'oeuvres. But my family stood still, awash in the strange, overwhelming hush of proof. Here was something more real than a news article, more enduring than gossip, than warnings or old dismissals. What I had tried to show, laid out on the wall with every brushstroke. Ma's hand found my sleeve. "You did this." I nodded. For once I saw not worry or shame in her gaze, but wonder, an open, naked pride. The kind I'd hungrily imagined as a kid. "We all did," I added, a whisper meant only for her. "I just painted it." Outside the gallery, winter crackled, neon humming through the night. But inside, the room felt warm, familiar, a holiday dinner, a Sunday morning thick with coffee and old chatter. For the rest of the night they lingered. Julia pulled me aside, her speech halting, careful. "Sorry for back then. We just didn't get it. I'm glad you didn't give up." I looked at her, older, eyes softened by time. "Me too." Marty didn't say more, but when he left he gripped my arm. A brief, intense squeeze, unspoken but true. As the crowd thinned, Ma helped me gather a few things. She kept touching the sleeve of my jacket, grounding herself in the newness of me, or perhaps in her own relief. When the doors closed and the gallery emptied, we stepped outside together. Night muffled the city, snow swirling in amber streetlight. "Coming home?" she asked, voice tentative. I nodded. "Yeah." I'm ready now. We walked around the corner, boots crunching, breath rising in tandem. I was no longer the boy fumbling in hospital corridors, haunted by shame. I was just myself, my wounds, my hunger, my colors, all of it returned to the place I'd begun. City lights shimmered overhead, and in their reflection I saw the strange, aching beauty of coming home, not to be forgiven but to forgive. And in that clarity, sharper than grief, I finally breathed deep and full, the years of struggle singing in every step.